Imagine you've got a winning formula and then someone comes along and decides to change it up. Some might succeed by changing the formula, others don't. Well, sit back, relax, and find out what the game is all about. It's a controversial release, but don't judge until you've seen my takes on the game. You might even call this your favorite next strategy game. The core gameplay loop of Civilization VII feels familiar, but there's this twist that changes everything. There's a completely new influence system that makes diplomacy actually matter. Every diplomatic action costs influence points, and these relationships have real weight behind them. At least until we talk about the AI behavior, but that's a whole different story. Let's talk about how cities work, because this is where things get interesting. Civilization VII splits settlements into cities and towns. This change is brilliant. Your capital starts as a city, but every new settlement begins as a town. These towns are perfect for getting resources and controlling territory without drowning you in micromanagement. They're simpler, more focused, and can even specialize in different roles. And yes, you can upgrade them later if you need more options. Speaking of changes, the classic barbarians got replaced by the so-called independent powers. These small, leaderless settlements are scattered across the map and offer unique opportunities for players to interact with them using diplomacy, influence, or military force. Whether you're playing alone or with friends, the basic flow hasn't changed. You expand, you develop, and you decide whether to fight for more territory or focus on building. An interesting addition is that the map splits into rural and urban tiles. You can stack two buildings on a single tile. But that's not even the best thing about this system. Most buildings actually become outdated as you advance through ages. Because of that, they are losing their bonuses unless you replace them. This creates this highly satisfying cycle of rebuilding and upgrading your city. So if you make a mistake with your early game planning, it's not a big problem. You can fix it later by replacing old buildings with new ones. The adjacency bonuses work a bit differently, but the core idea of carefully planning your city layout is still there. It just adds a new flow to the game, which I really enjoyed. Now let's talk about one of the biggest changes in Civilization VII, the age system. The game splits into 3 distinct ages, and each transition brings something unexpected. Here's what makes it interesting. The transition come with well-balanced crisis events. Unlike other strategy games where crises can completely derail your progress, Civilization VII handles them differently. They only happen twice throughout the game, and surprisingly, they often bring opportunities along with their challenges. Think about it this way, a crisis might trigger some disaster. The disaster can harm your progress, but it could also open up new policy options that could work in your favor. You might even grab a free city from all the chaos. I think that this is a good feature for casual players. Pros might be annoyed by the randomness that this brings into the game. What's cool though is that you can turn it off if you don't want to play with it. Another interesting update are the age transition changes. Each age transition hits you with a massive change. You literally have to switch your civilization completely. This means new unique buildings, new unique units, and an entirely different playstyle. But here's where things get tricky. While you're changing everything about your empire, the only thing that stays constant is your leader. You'll be dealing with the same leaders in diplomacy, but their civilizations keep changing too. This creates an interesting experience. You're never quite sure what units or buildings your opponent has. The game keeps you guessing about what other civilizations are capable of, which adds suspense but also makes strategic planning more challenging. The visual style of Civilization VII sits somewhere between its predecessors. The new game leans heavily into Civilization VI's more colorful approach. The game looks beautiful in many places with incredibly detailed landscapes and environments. But here's where things get complicated. Sometimes that detail works against you. Units can get lost in the visual noise. This can make it frustrating when you're trying to track enemy movements or if you're trying to find your own units. The user interface takes an interesting approach. It strips things down to the basics. Mostly grayscale backgrounds with clear labels and occasional color coding. It's minimalist but functional, giving you exactly what you need without cluttering the screen. What about the artificial intelligence in Civilization VII? This is where things get complicated. The AI shows some impressive skills. It knows how to position its units strategically and build cities in smart locations. But despite these improvements, something feels off. At higher difficulty levels, it still relies on the classic strategy. The game just gives the AI extra advantages rather than making it genuinely smarter. But then, if you're playing on a lower difficulty, you will spot the weaknesses in its decision-making. So, at the moment, the AI is lacking in my opinion. But it's still competitive enough to keep you on your toes throughout the turns. No matter which leader or civilization you are facing, you'll find yourself in challenging situations most of the times. So, is it a step back? I would say no, but it's not a visible step forward either. Let's talk about future content for a second, because there's a lot of interesting stuff coming. The first DLC drops in March 2025, 1 month after launch. After that, we're getting regular content drops for several months. Alright, so what makes this game good and or bad? The game splits into 3 distinct ages. It separates leaders from civilizations, and it lets you change your civilization as time moves forward. This is huge, but what does it actually mean for players? First, you've got way more combinations to play with, almost too many to try. Second, leaders become the constant thread in your story, making each playthrough feel more personal. The New Age system brings some pretty cool stuff to the table. You've got legacies, milestones, and objectives that reward you as you play. And what's very good is that you can carry these benefits without getting locked into one strategy. Leader attributes stick with you through every age, and even the crisis system turned out better than expected. Here's the thing about Civilization VII. If it runs smoothly on your system, you're looking at something pretty decent, so check out the performance requirements before you get the game. Like every Civilization game before it, you can expect updates, you can expect improvements, and plenty of extra content. Like I said in the beginning, change isn't easy, but most of Civilization VII's changes are solid and not bad, especially if you're not a competitive player. If you're already into Civ games, you'll probably find yourself sinking hours into this one. The game keeps what works and adds enough new stuff to feel fresh. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. I'm uploading new videos every week. Drop your thoughts on Civilization VII in the comments below. And with that said, have a good one, and I see you in another video.